Hi everyone. In my last video, I talked about some of the problems that TFT has that are really hurting the ability for players to play flexibly. In this video, I'm going to be talking more about the solutions to that, and what I think an ideal flex meta would look like in set 15. So, traits, generally, like they're going to provide their bonuses to their units, but some traits have value to other units even though the actual bonuses only benefit the units themselves. For instance, tank traits can benefit any backliner because the more tanky your frontline is, the more time your backline has to do damage. So if we look here, we have these traits. We have Soul Fighter, we have Mentor, Crystal Gambit, Duelist, Heavyweight, Luchador, Mech, and then of course units that don't expressly need traits like Lulu, TF, well, like this. None of these need traits. But if we do want to play around traits, we have some options. And the way you would approach it is just to consider first the connections, and then second, any inherent synergies. But those are more unique, so I'm not gonna worry about those now. But for express synergies, let's first take a look at all Soul Fighters. Xinjiao probably doesn't fit, but we have the Sorcerer Core, which I talked about before. We also have Duelist, which directly links with Udyr, so technically you don't need anything further, but you could technically add more Duelist to this core and then replace units as needed. So like Ash plus, I don't know, another Duelist. There aren't many Duelists to pick from. In a world where 4 Duelist was actually playable, like that would be an option. Like you just drop something random, and then this would be a playable thing. But the other route is, yeah, another Soul Fighter. But this also isn't really a playable thing. You could play like this, but apart from Duelist, you have Executioner, which is like not like explicitly like anything crazy, but like you have some connections. For instance, you have Senna Rise. The unit you drop here is actually Udyr because of the mentor bonus. And then with that, you kind of like see this thing. Like even though Callista ends up not fitting, you still use Callista to kind of get to this board. This is something that could be played if it were balanced, if the game were balanced in a way where this was an option. But that's not really ever going to be viable. Last one is we have Edgelord, which actually you do have some kind of way to get into this because you have like Volibear, which connects with Mundo, and you hit like a nice duo carry, like 4-cost board. And then you can cap out with like another Soul Fighter, like Gwen. It's not even bad. But yeah, what's good about the Juggernaut board is that you have access to a 5-cost. So there are 4 frontline traits, and of them, only 2 of them have a 5-cost. So the ones with a 5-cost are generally going to be the better ones to look for when playing for flex. Juggernaut, Lee Sin, and you have Braum, both of which are also carries while being in a tank trait. So Braum is a damage dealer in a tank trait, which is very good because you can put items on him. And even though you're not going to have many damage dealers, having one of them as a 5-cost is very good. And then same thing for Lee Sin. He's a damage dealer in a tank trait, so same thing. So next I'll talk about, Bastions. Of these, we have 1 carry. None of these other units really can carry. In some like extreme circumstances, Shen without hero arguments can carry, but it's not very good. Yeah, and then none of these other units deal enough damage to carry. So you are more dependent on connecting traits and then inherent synergies later. Obviously, these are always going to be playable with any frontline, just because there's no traits. And we've seen both of those be meta already. But if we're looking for trait connections, we have some options. The best way to approach it is to look at the higher cost units and then go down the line. So for Braum, if we want to play around Braum, we have Luchador, and then you see we have a connection here, which makes Volibear a very good fit onto the Bastion board. Dr. Mundo doesn't fit very well just because he is another frontliner that doesn't share the same trait here, so he's not really getting any benefits. So it is very difficult to play Mundo on a Bastion board. But we have Gnar. Gnar has Sniper. He's also just a good support unit because he gives some AD. And he also has CC from Luchador, so he's a very good unit to splash. So he is an option to play around. First, let's look at Volibear. You have 6 faction, you just drop 1, but you would play around like this core. The board that people end up playing is just traitless because people found that was the best, but from a theory standpoint, you would look for other things that would connect. The first avenue would be, okay, so this not Bastion unit trait, what are you looking at? It's Edgelord. What Edgelord can we fit? Then we see Samira fits really easily because of Xinjiao. And then the other units are like pretty okay. Like if you want to get a 3rd or a 4th Edgelord, the other options are Yone, Yasuo, and Zaya. As a result, some variation of like 6 Bastion Edgelord will have like this score plus like 1. If you play Zaya, you just like have the Rel. I think Garen is better just like on its own without Star Guardian, so generally this is the preferred core. If you want to just play straight up like this board, it's pretty good. Like this is just like a straight up reroll board now, but before that became strong, this is also like the same thing. Yasuo has like his mentor bonus, so he gives some attack speed. You like if you have the means to reroll him, that's why that works. But then otherwise, just adding the 5 cost also is good. So then playing something like this ends up being a flex option. If you don't go the edgelord route, you have the Gnar route. You're playing around Braum Gnar, and you're looking for other units that fit. So now we're looking for snipers, and then we have a couple okay connections. We have Jinx. Like you would generally want to start from the higher cost units and then go down. So we have Jinx. Because we're playing Jinx, we look for Rel to get her Star Guardian bonus active. And then from here, we have Caitlyn. And then we have some pretty good connections here. Because we want Battle Academy active, you have to drop something. In this case, you could drop like either Shen or Xin Zhao. Doesn't really matter. But yeah, that's how this would work. But the problem is that, as I talked about before, Caitlyn's pretty bad. Like, without 7 Battle Academia. So, this doesn't really do anything. Even though this works for Leona, which is likely to be your main tank, it's not really worth it to play this, like to play Caitlyn. And instead it's better, like unironically, to just play like Varus and then like look for like a Jhin or something. So well, in theory, like we end up dropping to like this board, and then like I said, that's how you end up back to like that Sniper Bastion board. But even in that variation, you didn't activate Battle Academia. They have to have 7 because even at 3, it's not enough. But on the topic of Battle Academia, the next thing you'd look for is Leona because she's the next highest cost. So then you go and Yumi's the highest thing that you can pick. So okay, Bastion Prodigy. What do we have to work with? Obviously, you share a trait here, but you'd have to add another Battle Academia. You don't have a lot of options to add here. And if you fully went into the optimization route, you just go back to the other comp. So in this example, we have to not add Ezreal. And instead, we're just adding more Prodigies. In which case, other things that connect are this. This is kind of the only other option to play around the board here. But this is not very good either. And the reason for that's Archangel's nerfed. Like, your build would probably be something like this. But Prodigy before you get to 4 is pretty bad. Like, specifically 3 Prodigy is pretty bad. But the way you'd make this comp work would be to play with that. Your next thing is, like, going down, you have access to Sork. So, with Sork, you look at traits. Gwen fits really well. So does Lux. It's hard to hit both, because you have this awkward 3-3. But one at a time, this makes it really easy to fit in. As a result, Gwen is in the same boat as Volibear, where it is a very good addition to the board. It just fits really well. But apart from that, the next thing to look at would be Karma. But Karma doesn't share a trait. It's not that bad. In theory, like it's the exact same build. Like that's probably what you're looking for. But Archangels is like not really an item anymore. Like you could cap with like Gwen, Ahri, or it's probably Ahri. Like this would be an option. Like you have specific needs for your carry. You're not gonna have very high activation on their traits, which will contribute damage. So normally you're looking for items that will take care of that. When you have a frontline that lasts longer, you generally play towards stalling. So you end up with this core of items that like usually carries over. So in a perfect flex meta, around Bastion for instance, you would be able to play this and you could flex between the two. However, this has never been viable because Bastion isn't strong enough and because scaling has been harshly gutted this set. But in a flex meta, like an AP flex meta, you have 2 options here, which isn't terrible. You could then investigate something like Rise, maybe. I don't know, you'd have to get like Executioner or Strategist. They don't fit that well. Like you can get Cat as a trait bots, and then you can add like Lee Sin or Kali. Like this could be an option here. You have the Callista, which doesn't really do anything because you're not really playing around Xin Zhao. So this like not, I guess it's a trait activation, but it's like a fake one. Even in that example, your build would look something like this, which is like pretty good. And it kind of talks about it like explains what the core of flex is, which is like not true flex. Flex will never be truly flexible. Like I feel like the idea that you could outplay anything at any point in time based on what you hit will never exist in TFT, and that has never been the case. The core of flex is to play around a strong core and then be able to fill in additional components based on what you hit. So, in historical examples of flex, there's always some broken core that you were playing around, and then the rest was like acceptable. Right now, an arguable flex comp is Star Guardian on the basis that this core is like it is just straight up this core, which is just Jinx Poppy. It's like arguably a flex comp. But the problem is that like the low Star Guardian versions need Tiny Team. So like you have like it's probably like what this core, right? This is probably like the real core, and then if you have Tiny Team, you add other stuff, and if you don't, you just add more Star Guardians that benefit. But I would argue that this is a core. And then another variation is with Narvaram. So, and okay, the broken core is like you build the same items, but you flex. The only difference is that in this case, your backline, you're like units that you're prioritizing your items for, isn't flexible because it's just Jinx. So this is like fake flex. Like I would say, like true TFT flex, the unit that you put items on is the one that is flexible, and then it's the core that's like stable. So like the core isn't supposed to include the carry for it to be flexible. I think that's the main thing, which is why I described something like 6 Bastion, 6 Juggernauts, or any of the tank traits, Mecha, Mentor. Those are flex cores because you don't have to play a carry within any of those traits. So in a Bastion AP flex example, we have a way to play these 3 AP units. Your build would not really change very much. Whatever would be optimized would be optimized. From a pure theory standpoint, you'd pick scaling, healing, plus mana item, and then this core would just be built on any of these units, and whoever you hit, you hit. But because Archangels is not very good, it's maybe like this. That's not really like that big of a difference. And then from a different component line, we go like a Ginsu thing. It's the other scaling line that you normally consider. What options we have here? Not very much. We have Ashe that can build it. You have no trait connection. Actually, you do have a trait connection. You have Swain. Honestly, you could like this could be a flex too, and you one more duelist like Viego, but also it's probably like Lee Sin, right? Like this would be a flex line, right? You would be able to play this, and then Crystal Gambit could do something, not even bad, because you only need 2 duelists. So we have the caster line. We have this like theoretical thing that you could technically fit. In a state where 6 Bastion were good enough to support this, your flex options are good. You have 2 carries, which is not the same as 3, but it's okay. And then the final option I think is like what, an Infinity Edge approach, probably, where you probably look for like you could probably play on the score. But honestly, you don't with the way items are balanced right now. Riot wants to make it so that this is like playable. You probably still need this, but you could kind of flex around some things. And if Ashe doesn't explicitly scale with attack speed, you might not actually need like much attack speed at all. So I think the design that Riot's been going for with Ashe is actually pretty good. We end up with a flex option where like you can actually play around something like this. And then like these 2 would probably want like Shojins, but like these would probably want like something like this. So it's double sword flex Bastion, right? But all this is on the back of 6 Bastion being good. And then like the last one that's like probably hard to play is Akali because you have no connections, but I think that's fine. I think theoretically being able to play all of these carry units with Bastion is very, very compelling reasoning to buff 6 Bastion and make it a little overtuned. Like if you want a flex meta, you need something to be broken to encourage it. If I go back to 6 Juggernauts, how ambitious can I be with the other scaling? Or is it just genuinely like not as flexible and it has to be Bastion? Could Akali ever be playable from the spots? Maybe. Okay, so you need Executioner. If you add the Rise, you might have to drop the Udyr, which would be a little rough. Duelist is like kind of fake here. But like Heavyweight would be much more valuable. It's rough with 6. Like at least the Rise one like kind of fits here with like good quality units. Okay, I don't think you can fit a Collie. Is Jinx playable? I don't think Jinx is playable. Right? There's like no connections. Jinx and Yuumi are not playable because of trait design, which is fine, honestly, because like you don't need everything to connect. But like, okay, is there any way you can play Jinx? Like, you like Gnar. Jinx needs Star Guardian active. So you can, I mean, you can get Poppy in, but like the other snipers are Battle Academy, Wraith. Wraith as a duo you can play. Like you would fit them, but to them to trim this, you have to drop Udyr. Oh, that's not very good. If you go for a different Star Guardian, because you drop Aatrox, what would you add? Alright, there aren't any good options here. You'd have to you'd have to play around this, but that's not enough damage for sure. Like you have Jinx Lee Sin, so Jinx is probably not playable, and then Yuumi is almost guaranteed not to be playable. It's like you can get Ezreal here, and then what's Jace? Is this even bad? Honestly, I mean, two Prodigy isn't bad. So okay, what are your backline options? It's the same, right? You have your 4 cost options with like the same kind of dynamics. You're playing on scaling. It's probably like this. Just on all of them. 6 Juggernaut could work because the only ones that aren't clickable are these two. And actually, the Jinx example isn't that different from the Yuumi example. But I think Akali specifically is one where you'd probably just drop down. It's awkward with Akali. Now heavyweight is gonna cap low because there's no 5 cost. But what can we look for here? We have Star Guardian. Again, I play Jinx. Bad Academia would fit Caitlyn, but you're not activating the trait, so it doesn't really matter. You have Wraith, so you can play Varus. And then there's no other like things that fit, so you can probably just look for like Zyra. So yeah, Jinx could work. If you fit Yuumi, Ezreal, you can go. I mean, actually, you can go any of the like the Prodigy core fits because you have like this. So like any combination of prodigies would work, right? Right? Because we've had the heavyweight Mals, but if you want to play a, but in theory, you could do this. This is pretty much a worse version of the other one that had more high cost units, but in theory, this would be playable. The other, so it'd be like this. This would be the Yuumi board, and then somehow you'd get like you could do this, but your 3 prodigy and 3 prodigy is pretty bad. So yeah, Yumi's like a maybe. Ashe, I mean, you just need to activate Duelist somehow, which here we can get. You can pick Kaisa. I don't even think you even care about that. Just Lee Sin. Like, it's just random Duelist plus, honestly, literally anything. Like, it's just random. Like, you're not getting another trade in that's valuable. So, it's kind of iffy. It doesn't cap very high, so probably not very good. Volibear does not fit. Samira does not fit. Like, the amount of hoops you'd have to go through to get any kind of synergy. Rise, you could do the same thing. Actually, no, you can't because you're like you have to play these 6. You can't fit in J4, so you have to put like Lucin. It's just the same thing. You could play Karma maybe, but like it's like not that meaningful. Ari fits. Gwen doesn't fit on her own. Ari could fit. Like you'd still prefer the Gwen though, but it's just not synergistically good. The point is heavyweight's rough and doesn't cap high because it doesn't have a 5 cost. Protector is the same situation. It just doesn't cap high. So you're gonna play these in like rerolls. Okay, so what are the non-reroll flex options for Protector? Rise fits really well. Like that, I mean that works. And you can lean into either Strategist or Protector. Or I mean or Executioner. So like you have like Akali, you got like Lee Sin. Like this works. And like this is like a obviously the optimized version drops some protectors, but we're just like talking about the possibility. Yuumi needs some activations here, so we have Ezreal, which is good. And then recap here we can add Seraphine pretty easily. Or Malzahar actually. So again, we have this overlap of things. Or from a like a flex standpoint, we have the Yuumi, but we can also play around like Malzahar and reroll. Right? This could be a thing. And how far would optimizations go? You for sure drop those things. Your other options are pretty okay, but you have like this, and like obviously like you're getting back into the normal core. I'm trying to see if there's any variations that we can make, because maybe you could drop these and play this, and we can't drop Ezreal, but you could play this. This is just another variation of the same thing. This might actually be better than the normal Prodigy board. It's worse for Yumi though. That's the thing. So if you're playing around Malzahar reroll, this is probably better. I mean, okay, Garen's kind of a beast, and then Rakan is also really nice value. Unit quality overall is kind of similar, but you have more Battle Academia for Yumi, so obviously in a Yumi-centric comp, that would be better. Without that, I mean, the other thing is that Leona's less contested. This is an interesting optimization you can do. You'd probably only play this from like Lighting Jewel. But Lighting Jewel is also getting nerfed, so Volibear is never playable. Samira is never playable. Karma is a Sork connection, so maybe. I mean, you're never gonna activate a trait for Cassandre, so like if you want to play on Nico, it's Ari. If not, it would be Lux Gwen. Or you also just do like J for Lucian. This could be okay, but this is very low damage. And Ashe really only needs Duelist, so you have these two 5 costs. It ends up working out okay. But probably doesn't cap as high as like the Bastion boards. So what I'm trying to say is, if we want to flex meta, we need to buff Bastion. And buff items that synergize with Bastions, like Ginsu's Archangels. So the problem is with Yumi is that you have Ezreal. It's not like this is a bad thing, but like you kind of have to play them together. Same thing to a lesser extent. So like this example, like Battle Academia is like a much more impactful contribution to Yumi than like Mech is the Karma. But this is a pair. Like okay, the other pairs are two like a 2+5 cost, right? And this is a bit healthier because you can't plan your game very easily around 5 costs. Whereas if you're looking for Yumi and you want to play flexibly, you have to also hit an Ezreal on like 8. The real thing is that like these traits have like too big of a concentrated core and not that much flexibility. Like Star Guardian is flexible, but like some comps will just revolve around the same cores of like units. Like you have like this whole section of units, and then you have like this group. With trait and item changes, you can improve flexibility even with how the traits and the trait web is designed. And even though there are going to be some problems, I do want to make it clear that it is fixable at any point in time with the right changes.